morning, and welcome to the Big Buzz Breakfast Club. I'm Melissa Legowski. I'm founder, CEO, and queen bee at Big Buzz Idea Group, and we're really excited to start our day off with you on a great presentation today, how to better engage and expand your audiences. Most nonprofits and associations we know are working with members, donors, and all kinds of audiences and trying to get people engaged, especially these days when everybody seems more than busy, is so important. Couple of housekeeping tips as we get started. This session is being recorded and you will be able to receive this link. Usually it is later today unless the video gets delayed by any way. Please put your questions into the Q&A or the chat box today so that our team can receive those and continue to share those with Stacy and Faith as they come in to keep the session very interactive. Going to be very interactive today, and I think that is a great way for you to really start to think about this on a deeper level right out of the gate. And then we do want to continue to make sure information is available to as many people as possible and have an inclusive environment. So please do use the closed captioning button to turn off and on the closed captioning as you desire. Just a quick minute about Big Buzz Idea Group if you are not aware, but we know here that many nonprofit executives lack the staff, time, skills, and funding that they need to thrive. Big Buzz Idea Group fills gaps in management, marketing, and event services so that you can focus on the big picture and position your organization to thrive. We really are just thrilled to be able to support the nonprofit community. We believe wholeheartedly that we want to help keep all of your organizations focused on mission, vision, and growth. And so we support in the back end in the operations space to make sure that you are getting all that you need in an outsourced way so that it can also be priced at whatever level fits within different organizations. We have been around since 2004 and are continuing to expand and support in many ways. So if there's anything we can do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to schedule a time to meet you. But on to our topic at hand. Today, we are welcoming Faith Hurley and Stacy Callahan from Pinpoint Collective. I've had the honor of participating in a presentation with these ladies, probably about 6 months ago now. And I really just took so much away from it about how to really go deeper, how to think differently, and how to just approach our audiences in a far more engaged way. And so I reached out to them because I really felt like this was a community and a space that would benefit from that same information. So without further ado, I'm going to stop my sharing and turn the floor over to them.
Good morning. Thank you, Melissa, for such a lovely introduction. As Melissa mentioned, this will be an interactive discussion, and so we really encourage you to participate. The more perspectives and voices that we hear, the more the activities come to life, and we can kind of see how to connect the dots when we bring these activities back to our own organizations as well. But before we kick off, we'll just tell you a little bit about us and Pinpoint. So first and foremost, I'm Faith.
And I'm Stacy.
We're the co-founders of Pinpoint Collective, and we live by the philosophy that we believe it's no longer appropriate or active or impactful for leaders to be the ones sitting around the table making decisions based on what they think the communities that they serve want and need, when there's room and aptitude to actually go out and hear directly from the communities that we serve to help fold that into some of our decision making as we go forward. So a little bit about our purpose. So Pinpoint is going to be 5 years old, I believe, in July. And we created, Stacy and I have worked together for north of 12 or 15 years together, both in agency life, then in-house. Then we went out and started Pinpoint because we wanted to find a way to bring the idea of human-centered design or design thinking to communities that might not have access to that, whether it be, cost of entry, lack of even understanding that this is another way to approach your business. And while developing Pinpoint, with the idea of serving small to medium-sized businesses, we started to evolve what design thinking even meant to ensure that we were creating inclusive communities. And so we developed what's called equity-centered innovation, which is an evolution of design thinking, or human-centered design, if you're familiar with those terms at all. And it's really just holding us accountable to ensuring that every part of that process is inclusive from the beginning. So even down to when we're recruiting, how are we recruiting the right participants to serve as the right voices at that table to ensure that the solutions we're developing actually meet the needs that they have within the organization or the community that they're a part of. So when we decided to evolve the methodology, it was based on just some of these stats that you see on the screen. And as it says, the list goes on and on. There are so many communities that aren't currently represented in the conversation, and so hence aren't a part of the solution defining. And that just wasn't okay to us anymore. So we figured, we'll take the bull by the horns and start to make some impactful, positive change. With that, our clientele is really robust and quite a variety, and that's by design. We believe we're whole humans. So when we're working with clients, we challenge them to think of the human behind the client that they have. So recognizing that someone might be a mother as well as a wife, a sister, working full-time, there's a lot of complexity to us. We're not just the one moment that we interact with their organization, whether that might be just the consumer moment in our lives. So we really love working with clients that are at a moment of change, and that are willing to really listen to the voices of their audience, whether they feel that they look like them or think like them or have the same exact values as them, but recognizing to put their own entrenched beliefs and assumptions to the side and genuinely lean in and listen to what the community that they're trying to serve has to say and what their needs are. Those clients at a moment of change come to us in all different shapes, sizes, moments in time, but just to oversimplify it, on the spectrum, sometimes they land in this kind of aha moment, this eureka moment, where they themselves have maybe experienced a pain point, seen a moment where they could be shown up for better, and they want to see if there's others like that that would benefit for some solution for that pain point. I feel like that's whenever we're watching Shark Tank, if you're familiar with that, like moms are always such great participants on that because they're living real pain points every day and thinking, gosh, if someone just solved this for me, this would be better. So that's kind of that aha moment. On the other side is an oh no moment. And that can be legacy clients that we're very familiar with the name or the product that they do. But that is those moments where they're either losing competitive, edge, perhaps they're not retaining clients or their audiences or consumer as much as they typically do. And they have a sense that something just isn't landing the same way anymore. So it's time to maybe go revisit what their value proposition is, how they're showing up for those communities, and better understand how they can evolve and change to meet the community that they serve. Equity-centered innovation can be like a really nebulous process sometimes, filled with a lot of jargon and research and strategy, these kind of lofty terms. So Stacy and I kind of challenged ourselves to understand how could we make it as approachable and digestible as possible. And so we developed what we call PINs. And essentially those are our capabilities and the scope and process and approach in which we would tackle the goals and needs of said project with our client. So they really kind of align into these 4 different columns. On the first, you'll see is quantitative research. So we are geeks for data. We nerd out on numbers. We believe that that is really valuable research to look at. And it understands and helps us kind of point us in the right direction. So the pins underneath the quantitative data are a lot of times where we start, unless of course we're working with clients that might have a lot of quantitative data already. They're just not sure how to make it actionable. We try to be as flexible as possible, which is one of the kind of design directives of the pins. The next column is qualitative data. That's when we really go out in the shoes of the consumers or the audiences that we serve, and we understand the why behind the number. So the quantitative data is incredible. It holds us kind of, again, towards a North Star. It holds us accountable to some numbers, but in the end, it's still just numbers. And so we're humans. So let's combine what that data tells us with what the actual why that drives the human to make that decision that adds up to that number. The third column is innovation work sessions. That's where we're in a room together. We're collaborating with our clients. We're prototyping. We're solving things together. And then the last column is the design strategy. And this is where we take that research and we start to have it influence into action. So making sure that whatever we uncovered in research really comes through all the way into implementation, execution of those insights. We never start just in the design strategy phase. Again, we believe great design starts with great research. So we always want to engage with clients in some form or fashion in combination of the research to then help influence the design strategy going forward. And last but not least, and this is, I've been jabbering on, but I hope this is the moment that makes sense for all of us, because this is what we'll kind of be focusing on together today. We take research and we do what's called an outside-in approach. And so sometimes it takes a moment for our clients and our teams to reframe, because we're so used to just looking within our own offering and maybe within our own industry, but it's hard to start to look beyond that, because that's what's driving our business, that's what's making decisions, and that's what we're living and breathing and our experts at, right? So it's just by nature what we tend to start to compare to. So what we actually say is, let's flip it on its head and start with your audience's lifestyle. So again, that comes back to that idea of thinking of the whole human behind that one interaction that they have with you. So let's start with their lifestyle. Let's see what drives them. So if it's seamlessness or convenience that's driving them, and why they're, have the Starbucks app to be able to order their coffee before they walk in. Is it because it saves them time? Is it because they don't have to interact with people? They can just run in, run out. But that's a driving behavior that we can then better understand and take inspiration from. So once we understand, oh, it's time saving that they really appreciate about that, then we can look within our industry to see what other great benchmarks are happening. What other ways can we understand time saving? And then we go from industry down to our specific sector, and then finally down to our offering. So again, rather than starting at the offering and trying to ideate and create understanding of what they might need based on what we think they need, let's just start out with what's already working in their lives and then take inspiration and see how we pull that through to our offerings going forward. So I think that's a little bit about our process. And again, we're going to be, playing around together with this all around. So I'm going to hand it over to Stacy to lean into a case study.
And do the case study together. So we thought that before we dive into an activity that we're all going to be doing as a group, and like Faith said earlier, we're going to be as engaged as possible in the chat. We thought that we would take a quick step back and walk through a recent project of ours with a dental association who was really struggling with their members. And we'll kind of walk you through that process. So it will, I hope inspire our little activity to come. And sorry, there's you might be hearing some background noise on our end. There's some construction going on in our office today. Okay,
Just started right now, of course. Perfect timing.
So like Faith said, aha and oh no, this client in particular came to us in an oh no moment. They are an association for dentists, and they realized that it's a very pivotal moment in the dental industry. Dentists themselves are changing. This is the very first time it started in 2019 that the majority of dentists were actually minority groups. For so long, it had been white male dentists who were taking over their father's practice, going to school, planning that evolution and continuation of the generations. But that shift happened a couple of years ago, so that whether it is women dentists, minority dentists, they really are starting to become over the 50% majority in dental school. And what our client, this association, was uncovering is that they were losing members, they were not retaining members, and they knew that there was something around the way that they were showing up that was not resonating with this new demographic, but they did not know where to begin, which is where they invited us into the room so that we could really go out to FacePoint and deeply understand and unpack and research alongside these minority demographics and understand why this association was not showing up for them in the ways that they expected and needed. So we started off with these 3 prioritized audiences. It was actually very much baked in the quantitative side. I'm not going to go into all of those details, but what kind of came out of that quantitative research were 3 very distinct psychographics that aligned with 3 very different types of members. The first one is we called our all-star non-member. It was actually somebody who was not a member of this organization, and they were really driven by helping their community. They were not joining as a member, did not know why, did not know what was not resonating. So that was a really big opportunity for this association to bring in these new members. The second group was also not currently members. Let's unpack why they are not members. And their driving behavior was around debt relief. We called them our frugal focus non-members. This person very much was starting their career with a lot of debt, coming out of school, and that debt just weighed on their shoulders and was like the driving force behind every decision they were making in their career. And then the third group was actually a really interesting one. It was current members of the association. We were calling steadfast members, and they were really driven by a work-life balance. They chose this career as a dentist because they wanted to also start a family. They felt that this was a great way to make money, but also be able to live a life that they had always dreamed of. And they were currently the second least engaged with the organization. So we felt like this was also a great opportunity to understand why they weren't engaging at the rate that other members were. So those were kind of our 3 targets. And we did just what they said. We went out in the world and we got to meet one-on-one with a range of dentists that fell into each of these categories. And this is where that quantitative side gets really interesting. It allows us to go out in the world and make sure that we're recruiting the right people that fall into these different categories. In this case, we did a little bit of a mix of in-person interviews. We were flying all over the country to make sure we were talking to people in very different areas of the country. And then we also did some virtual interviews. And each of those kind of played out in we did a couple of different activities. So we thought that we would just kind of throw this up on the screen just to kind of see what these interviews look like and feel like. We have these digital whiteboards and physical materials that we have out when we are doing in person. But in this case, we did a really deep dive activity into understanding their lifestyles to FacePoint, start with that outside-in approach, so we could understand who they are as humans outside of being dentists, so that we could learn really what enticed them to become a dentist, what enticed them to choose the school they went to, choose where they were living, why they were living there, what type of practice they ended up pursuing. And that kind of inside out allowed us to really unpack who these people were and what were driving a lot of their behaviors. And then we did this activity, which was really learning outside of themselves as a dentist and a potential member of this association, what are touch points and other engagement, like interactions, to Faith's earlier point, like the Starbucks app. Like, I am maneuvering through my life and the Starbucks app is something that just helps me live a better life. We started unpacking a ton of those touch points, everything from Weight Watchers to these things called trigger cards that just inspired their kind of creative side of themselves. And these outside in touch points helped us unpack what inspired them so that we could take those learnings and uncover how we could evolve the way that this association was showing up with the learnings of these outside in. I'm going to mention this quote because I feel like it's going to pop up in our activity that we all do together, but we are such firm believers that the last best experience that somebody has becomes their minimum expectation moving forward. If I now can walk around with a little computer attached to my hip and scan a check and it is automatically put into my checking account while I am out and about in the world, that is now an expectation for any company that I engage with moving forward, that ease, that convenience. And so that's really what this activity was unpacking, is what are those moments that stand out for these very three unique audiences so that we could learn from it and evolve the way that this association was showing up for them, specifically when it comes to their dental career. So I'll dive into kind of some of the things that we learned in each of these groups. So this is that very first, we called them our all-star non-member, and they were driven, like we said earlier, by helping their community. This was one of the very powerful quotes that came out of the research that kind of represented a pattern that we heard. This was saying the younger generation needs a purpose for what we are doing. Money is only a piece of it. It's the mission of the company that's stronger. And that mission came down to where they were choosing to work, but also the groups that they were deciding to spend time in outside of their career, this association perhaps being one of them. And so what we came out of that was that really money isn't always a priority. And their behavior is that I'm not driven by monetary success. Instead, the impact I feel by improving a patient's smile or working alongside a super dentist pays off in dividends. And the why is that through these firsthand experiences, they're drawn to healthcare because their desire to help people and an interest in just really honing their craft. So we kind of take these behaviors and what we learn in that research to uncover opportunities that we phrase in questions that we'll practice in a little bit. But this one in particular was, how might we celebrate dentists who put healthcare first by creating a culture driven by care, not always money? And so from that, we took an outside trend or experience. In this case, somebody brought up that they are part of this Global Living Stories. It is these stories, it's this website that you can go on and you can deeply connect with why other communities like you, who they're engaging with, who they're donating to, and give you kind of the inspiration to figure out how you might want to spend your time and donate either your time or your money. But the fact that you're able to sort these organizations by people like you was really what was driving this user, this audience group. And so from that, we created this opportunity that was called the Giving Network. It was this plug and play program that the association that we were working with could help reduce barriers and allow their members to align and engage with communities and causes that were most important to them individually. So again, a way that they could sort by other people like them. I might be in Arizona, somebody else might be in New York, but if we have a similar community that we are trying to engage, how might the association start to really connect these two people so that they can go out and affect their separate communities in very similar ways and learn and inspire each other? A very, very, very different audience now. We're going to dive into the frugal focus so you can kind of see how different the outcome is when we have a very different person with a very different lifestyle. So this is the person who is driven by debt relief. This was their quote. This is actually so sad when we heard this. I ended up with a lot of student loans. We learned it's like upwards of $400,000 the minute that you come out of dental school. And it was hard because we were getting denied for home loans. The first year out of school, I was denied a Macy's card because of my student loan. It was embarrassing and sad. So here's somebody who has dedicated their career to working in the healthcare industry, to being a dentist, and cannot even get themselves a credit card. So our major behavior here is that debt impacts their life choices. I accumulated so much debt while I was in dental school that it has impacted me and my family's choices and our goals. And because of that, in their mind, student debt was tied forever to their career. However, the reality of life is that it is impacted well beyond that. It impacts their credit limits, their home purchasing, down to having children, deciding when to have children, if they can't even take a vacation. So like we mentioned before, that weight is just overpowering. And again, I hope that you can see just that that difference between that first user group we were talking about, who's super excited to go out and help their community and make these impacts. That is a very kind of different openness than this person who feels very enclosed and feels that weight. So for us here, that opportunity, how might we show up for dentists who have sacrificed personal milestones by providing access to the services that are beneficial to their family life? So this was that interesting one where Weight Watchers came up in one of their outside in example trends and touch points. But because of the way that the coach can show up in a virtual manner and be that person who is helping them through these very particular moments in their weight watching journey, that was what helped them so much. That felt like this very personal person who knew them deeply and could help them through very intricate decisions. And so our concept that came out of that for the organization that we were working with was this advisor on demand. It was this trusted and transparent advisor that could deeply understand the unique financial needs of a dentist, which are very distinct, and be able to help them at the onset of coming out of school, going through that, now that they have those student loans, helping them all the way through retirement to make sure that they're hitting those career milestones in their life, which is a very different way that this association could show up for their members than they were showing up prior to leveraging this research. And then last but not least is our Driven by Work-Life Balance, our Steadfast member. This was one of our favorite groups that we talked to. But this quote, I don't think that I can be a stay-at-home mom or an at-home wife. I think I will always be working until the last day, but I also don't have to be doing 6 days of dentistry. I wish that I could be doing 2 or 3 days and then have another side gig, whether that side gig in this point was being that stay-at-home mom, or they actually had inspiration for going out and doing another creative aspect in their life. But this was the person who chose to be a dentist because they really thought that they could have quite a balance. And then they come out of school and it just feels like they have to be working that 6-7 days a week. So this person, the opportunity, the behavior is really around goal-oriented decision-making. I'm driven by my career. I love my career, yet it is my career goals precede and dictate my involvement with both my family and community. So they have this unwillingness to risk the loss of a paycheck in order to compromise for their family's well-being or miss an opportunity to elevate their career. So this was really how our opportunity here was, how could we help support these goal-oriented dentists, communicate the importance of their aspirations to their friends and family, again, to kind of hold some accountability to making sure that their career didn't take over the life that they really hoped for at the onset of choosing this career. This was a fascinating outside in. I don't know if any of you have experienced or heard of the Peanut app, but it is an app specifically geared towards moms and moms to be as a way to connect with other mothers as they're at the onset of starting their family planning, to be able to connect with other moms like them, who, whether they are located near them, look like them, have similar kind of family makeups, but it's a very intricate way of connecting with others like you. That drove a new membership opportunity that actually just launched a couple of months ago called Career Champions. It was a members only online community for the organization that we are working with, connecting dentists by shared filters and criteria in order to foster relationships of expertise, experience, and mind share, really curated by who they are and who they want to become. So this was connecting those dentists based on the outside career goals, or sorry, not career goals, the life goals that they have beyond their career, so that they could really learn how to hold each other accountable, to work towards those life moments while still being able to live a career that they chose and that they do love, but not let it kind of overpower their life. And then the last thing that we did, so these are just 3 of the ideas and examples that came out of this research, but in reality, there were dozens and dozens of concepts, and we knew that this organization could not just implement all of them. We really had to come up with a strategic way to implement the ones that would make the most impact. So we use this feasibility matrix, which we'll be giving to all of you in just a bit, that really focuses on what the value of each idea is against the effort it will take to implement those ideas. So the value is the value it will have on your end audience. Sometimes that value is actually low. Not every single idea that we come up with on purpose is going to be these knight in shining armors. And so we really need to use this matrix to unpack which ones are worth pursuing and which ones are maybe just can be dropped because the effort is very, very difficult and the value to the end audience is actually very low. Where we really want to find opportunities are in some of the low-hanging fruit that might be very easy for us as an organization to implement and has some decent value. But where it starts to get incredible ideas is when we have these jewels, these low effort opportunities that have a very high impact on our audience. And then it's also worth pursuing some of the high and hards, which might be a little bit more effort and be a little bit harder to execute, but they're going to have incredible value. So we ran this activity with this organization. We mapped every single concept against this 2x2 so that we could uncover the very first top 4 prioritized touch points that we then have been working with them to implement. So that is a little bit of a case study. I hope that that's a helpful context in terms of an activity that we're all going to be doing together now.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. So again, please take advantage of the chat. Please engage with us. That's why we're here. We want to all create and ideate together so that we can get our kind of practicing our muscles to when we send this off to you to be able to do within your own organization. So today's goal is to share and practice tools that can help you better understand the behaviors of your audience and ideate touch points that will inform more valuable engagement over time. So one of the big challenges that we're going to ask of you guys today is to maybe not, again, broad brushstroke as like non-members or new members. Again, we know how busy you are and we know it's hard to know each of those people by individual snowflakes. But what we can do is just double click down a little bit on these. So like the association that we were working at, they weren't just saying dentists. Like that's how they referred to their community the entire time, dentists. And we were like, that's one lever, but I bet there's a lot more we can discover. So we'll be challenging you guys today to like think about those members and that outside in perspective. So what we're going to also challenge is because we know we're all coming from different organizations and different backgrounds, not maybe focused on the exact same community or cause. We're going to remove that and we're going to just allow some freedom and fun for us to think not within our organization, but trust us that this process then can be applied to your organization. So for the next 25 minutes or so, we'll get to all of our best lives as employees of AARP's Family Caregiving Team, which is a subset of AARP's kind of offerings and capabilities, which is, as by title, very specifically focused on people that are family caregivers. We're going to go through the exact process that we just outlined in the case study and kind of in our capabilities. So the step one is we're going to unpack some behaviors together. So we're going to talk about identifying as many whys behind a caregiver's lifestyle. Again, not only the role of being a caregiver, but what is their lifestyle to start to identify what might be the whys that motivate them behind the decisions that they make. We're going to look at some outside in ideation. So taking inspiration from trends outside of our industry so that, again, we're not just keeping up with the Joneses and being reactive in that one sector of that circle that we talked about, but looking again at that lifestyle and trying to see how we can, to Stacey's quote, you know, the last best experience they had is their bare minimum going forward, understand how we might take inspiration to marry that outside trend with their behavior to then ideate concepts and step 3, where we'll prioritize any of those concepts we come up together. Just again, practice what feels like, you know, the effort versus the value, the investment versus the impact together. So let's get into it together. So let's put on our AARP hat and kind of dive in really quickly. Because we're on chat and we're not going to be like stepping on each other's toes as much, we're going to keep this in here just so that when you're doing this within your own organization, It's really great to have some ground rules, to have people thinking differently, create a space that feels creative, feels abundant versus scarcity or versus scared of sharing ideas. So just some brainstorming rules, defer judgment, encourage wild ideas. At this point, again, we don't know what we don't know. We want to solve for it, build on the ideas of others, that mentality of yes and versus we've tried that or but. Stay focused on the topic, one conversation at a time. Be visual. This is the one that I'm always like the most scared of because I'm not an artist by any stretch of the imagination. Stick people, squares, circles, they can communicate your ideas, and go for quantity at this time. Remember, there will be a prioritization framework. So for right now, it's just about abundance. Any ideas are good ideas. So again, bringing that framework back around about the caregiver's lifestyle. What are some of the motivations for caregiving that we can think of? So again, thinking about those people. So if we look at our framework, a caregiver's lifestyle, they also perhaps are a family member. They are a child of a senior. And then last but not least, they are perhaps an AARP member in that group. So what are things in these other spheres of their life that if we took inspiration from and understand their lifestyle, AARP might be able to take inspiration and say, we can show up for them in other ways that solve for things they might have. Anything come to mind in terms of other motivations for caregiving? How they found themselves in that role?
Money, like to help others. Okay, we're gonna start capturing these in real time so we all have this to look back to afterwards. So like to help others, love that one, especially because sometimes like we are just people, especially women
Yeah.
who like we are born to empathize, and we find ourselves in the caregiving space because of that.
Maybe a personal, child or spouse needs help. Love that.
Mhm.
Maybe a personal experience with a loved one that they want to recreate.
Oh, I
Ooh,
love that.
that's interesting. Love that. Concerned about loved ones' care, getting the best care. I definitely think that's definitely a driver.
Mm.
One that comes to mind is, if you're the only child, so there aren't other siblings or to help maybe support that caregiving, just kind of gets doled out to you. Necessity,
Mm.
someone had said.
One of the ones that honestly has shown up in my own family is just the closest in proximity. You just happen to like live in the same neighborhood, and other family members have moved away, and it is just out of
Necessity, but proximity, even necessity and proximity, right? We can keep double clicking. It might be necessity, but what of it is necessity? There's another one in the chat, avoid a different care option or fear of poor care by other. Avoid a different care option is, I'm sure, a big driver, a big motivation. Having recently done some estate planning with my parents, the kind of assigned executor of the state comes to mind when that in that legal lens of it. Need for planning for the next phase. Yeah, exactly.
They're great.
Yeah.
Oh,
The wishes of the one being cared for. Yep.
Sometimes it's just that you physically have space in your house, and it just makes sense based on that.
Thinking of that too, I feel like I've overheard in relationships that I like the wealthiest, like the person that's just most financially stable might end up having to be in a caregiving role. Again, that previous idea of bad experience with external care options. There's a lot around that, around this, like either not trustworthy of the other, don't want to choose that option, have had bad experiences.
Have the most time available.
Oh, yeah. Want to create a peace of mind for another or another's family. Yeah. Got peace in the sense of PEACE. Yes, for sure.
These are great.
These are. Awesome, awesome. All right.
All right.
Look
So-
at that. That took less
Yeah.
than 2 minutes and we already have a lot of motivations for caregiving.
What is really interesting though, even as we start to look at each of these different motivations, is that each of them really have differing behaviors. They have different lifestyles. I mean, let's even talk about the person who is the wealthiest one in the family or has more money. They probably have a very, very different lifestyle than just like happens to be the closest in proximity or just happens to be an only child, perhaps. And because of that, their pain points are also perhaps very, very, very different. If we were to start to double click into, I've had a personal experience and I want to reconnect with somebody, those pain points could be very different than somebody who's I just have more time and availability. So should we double click?
Yeah. So let's start to think about, again, that's that first step, right? So look how easy and effortless you all did that. Brilliant, brilliant work. So the second one, the kind of second step of unpacking lifestyle traits. So now that we've understood some of the lifestyle ideas, now we want to understand, again, to Stacy's point, what are the lifestyle traits or behaviors or pain points for that? So again, we're going to start to, abundance quantity is the name of the game here. So we are just going to choose one. We had an idea that someone would say, closest family member geographically. So living closest to mom doesn't mean they are the most equipped to take care of for her, but the proximity makes her the most convenient. This daughter has a family of her own with small children, a husband, and a share of a household to look after on top of her full-time job. She's being pulled in many directions and wants to be as present for everyone in her life, but finds it nearly impossible. So again, we're just putting a little bit more color to a persona, but in reality, you guys would be doing this with the expertise that the members that you know, and all of the kind of lifestyle lens of that. So again, some of the psychographics that we were able to pull from some data. My mom cared for me. It's only right I return the favor. I wish my siblings lived closer to help. That's definitely a pain point I'm sure that people feel. I feel guilty when I don't show up for my mom every day. I feel guilty when I don't show up for my kids every day. I feel like I have to have too much on my plate and I just don't know how to keep up. So again, if we can now think about those psychographics of this person. So we again, double clicked, we identified one of the lifestyle traits that you had. We identified the person behind it. What are some of the pain points that we can think of?
Struggle to balance loved one
With
management
of our other responsibilities. Yeah, that pull of like, how do I do this, care for this person while all the other things I have to do? Oh, overlook self-care, great one. Yeah, that ends up putting themselves last in terms of taking care of themselves.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
I'm also going to encourage everybody at this stage to start writing these down if you do have a pen and paper in front of you, because we are going to use them for the next step.
Yes. Oh, might get angry with siblings.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sense of them not being able to help just purely based on proximity.
Yeah.
If focused time on caregiving give up the ability to generate income. Wow. Yeah, that's a great one. So again, if my time has to be dedicated to caring for someone else, that time then is taken away from me being able to, make more income, fulfill my career possibly.
I mean, even that, I'll double click into that, is like perhaps backtracking on your own career goals because of it, and being behind where you thought you would be.
Some unsaid and unresolved resentment might result. Absolutely. 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 I also hear from the one that was like, I might not have time to generate income. The time element, that being time starved, right? Like not feeling like I have enough time to accomplish all of these. General overwhelm. Yep.
I also, this one for me, I feel like hits close in terms of just like your other family members, like
Mhm.
that, just kind of like feeling like you can't be present for your own children because of your presence with your mom.
There's a bunch of others.
Ooh.
Decrease in mental health. Caregiver may be dealing with their own health or personal issues, divorce or child with a special need. Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. Yes, what do you do when you're caregiving for someone else and then your own health needs to be managed? Or again, you go through a major life milestone like divorce or special needs. Death of a sibling increases need, desire of living siblings to take care of parents. Yes. This last one too, I think is a great, huge one. Lack of knowledge of elderly resources or needs. I think that's a major piece that, again, we would probably, if we were out talking to real research participants here, that they, I'm not an expert in this. I've just fall into this role. Where do I find expertise? How do I'm going to build on that, double click the confidence. Where do you get the confidence to feel confident in the decisions you're making on behalf of this caregiver? That would be a big piece too. Loss of self in this process. Yes. Loss of self in the process. Time spent with caregivers, friends reduced, and those relationships affect negatively. Oh yeah. The sphere goes beyond just, again, their immediate family and their colleagues and all of that. Even their friends then are affected because they don't get to see them as much and be involved in that friendship.
These are fantastic.
Fantastic. And again, in a matter of moments, you guys came up with so many good ones. For the sake of time, I'm just gonna say great work on this. I'm sure we could come up with more. And I think we would maybe spend some time looking at these and again, seeing what that yes and what builds from those, from some of these great ideas, because they're pretty complex. Okay. Oh yeah, I'm too emotionally, oh, that's a good one. I'm too emotionally close. Will I make the right decisions? Yeah. So again, building off of, it's not only also just the confidence, but will I make the right decision that they want because of my own needs and what I'm emotionally fueled by. All right. So now I understood the lifestyle. We've understood more specifically that person and their lifestyle traits and the behaviors and pain points that might come from that. So now we're going to look at some outside in ideation that Stacy and I pulled around some of the things that we have started to identify in the traits above. So let's get inspired by these outside in trends early in the morning, and see how they might be, that last best experience that now intersecting that with some of the pain points that we identified above, we might be able to come up with some just crazy concepts, right? Out there, wild ideas. So the first benchmark we have is Obey Fitness, which Stacy is literally their #1 loyal fan, obsessed. So she can be a brand advocate for them. But the idea here being this virtual fitness app that meets you where you are. So again, it's not only that you're not having to go to a gym, so physical location and proximity and time isn't taken, but it allows you to do classes that are 10 minutes long, an hour long. You can take them multiple times. So again, meeting you where you are and helping solve for your level of engagement that you're willing to do with your fitness journey. So again, I can already see intersections with the lack of self-care that someone mentioned. Like, how do we solve for that? What is the Family by Shangri-La? Can you remind me of this one?
Great one. So Shangri-La is a hospitality company. They own a bunch of different hotels, and they created this program that is specifically geared around multi-generational travel so that they create these kind of curated experiences and travel moments that will keep from toddlers super engaged all the way to grandparents super engaged. And they are very conscious about each and every person's kind of pain point in travel and making it very seamless for everybody to find the right hotel, to find the right activities, et cetera. So they've kind of really thought about that curation moment for everybody involved.
Awesome. Speaking of curation, this next one is the Pantry Shop. And this is this great company that kind of, again, flipped grocery shopping on its head, or all of that kind of online experience. And it curates by time of day. So rather than you having to think through individual items that you eat or consume or want to throughout the day, it does it by like breakfast or morning, snacks, evening, lunch, and you get to shop in that sense. So again, saving a lot of time, saving a lot of that white noise that we're having to think through. I need, fruit snacks, and then I need dessert and all of the in between, right? I love that I went from fruit snacks to dessert. Clearly my eating habits I should think about more vegetables. The last but not least is the New York Times Primal Scream hotline. This is unbelievable that the New York Times came up with this, and brilliant. It is a hotline designed for moms to be able to just call and vent and communicate in any form or fashion that they want, that they might not feel that they can with either, again, their children, maybe most importantly, their partner, other moms. So again, just a very safe environment to communicate and basically scream your little head off and vent with what you want. So, and that's right. It's hilarious, but very well needed. I'm sure. It was one of those that came during the during COVID to help people. Okay. So I wish that would have been available earlier in my life. Understood. Okay. So now again, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because again, this isn't a muscle that you guys are used to using all the time, but we have all the confidence with how fast you ideated and all the other places that we can do this. So again, the self-care with the Obey, I can see, or even with someone mentioned the mental health space, the screaming hotline. So again, let's think about ways we can intersect these outside in ideations to see how would AARP take inspiration from this and maybe show up for their members in the family caregiving section of their organization.
Yeah. So this can be messaging. It can be touch points. It could be articles that they share. Again, I think that right now the caregiving section membership is so low, and they need to figure out how they can show up for this person in a very unique way, to build that membership.
Free resources. Love it.
Free resources.
Again, I love that, because the pain point obviously is the financial impact that being the caregiver already is. Create a space for people to feel heard. Ooh, I love that one.
I mean, you could really do a primal scream hotline. That is just like,
to empathize with a scheduled time, virtual place to connect with others in the same situation. Oh, I love that. Again, that sense of community and being able to share successes and failures with people that truly understand it. Fitness options for older caregivers. Love that idea too. Webinars on topics their members care about. Amazing. Love that community idea. I wonder if there's like a buddy system to that too. So maybe there's like group community, but then there's, that person that you guys can hold each other accountable, and it's like-mindedness. Ability to arrange in-person meetups. These folks need to get out and meet folks in their own same situation. Oh my gosh, I love that. That's like a great benchmark from Playdates, right? It's a Playdate, but actually for this community that needs it. Ooh, time-saving services. Yes, these people are time-starved. We identified. These are great. These are incredible. Oh, I love that opportunity to send thank you gifts to send to caregivers. Like, for example, a tea basket. Yes, they are so underappreciated. Can you imagine how much that being a part of AARP's community in this, and you recognize that, what that would feel to them? Ooh, art therapy. Amazing. List for commonly needed services. Wow. And that to me, again, in that framework that we would do of prioritizing, that helps with the time savings that someone already identified, that helps with the confidence in the service being offered, that it's trustworthy if it's coming. So like some of these concepts already hit multiple pain points. A video library of helpful info. I love that. Oh yeah, like just the how-tos. Because again, if you've never, for example, shaved another human's face, for example, if there was a video to show me how to do that safely, a checklist for planning for the later years, amazing. Ooh, I even love the idea of like a checklist for, you know, like your day to day or week to week, what you're trying to accomplish. I think there's a lot of variety in that. My gosh, you guys are really good at this.
Yeah, these are great.
Incredible.
Okay, this will be our last one.
Yeah.
Activities to do together that doesn't center on caregiving. Yes.
Oh, love that. Love that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And again, that's an idea right there that again solves for a lot of the pain points that we saw, a lack of, you know, a loss of self, you know, the just the kind of always focused on the caring. This like allows for a lot of that to be solved for.
Okay, I'm gonna pick two random ones. Oh, their ability to donate time to a local caregiver. That doesn't fit. That's great
Oh,
too.
that's incredible.
So if we were AARP,
Mhm.
the next step that we would do is take all of these concepts and start to map it on that 2x2 feasibility matrix that we showed early on. Since we're not technically AARP and we don't technically know the inside of the organization, we're just going to do like a little practice one together. So I'm just going to drop in. I pulled, what did we pull? A video library of helpful info. And then I pulled the very last one, the activities to do together that doesn't center on caregiving. So we would take all of our concepts and we would start to understand what is the effort that it would take for us as AARP as an organization. Is it a lot of effort? Is it very easy effort? And then what's the value for that end audience? Is the value like, it would help me, but you know, maybe not at the extreme point where it's making differences in my everyday life. So the video library to me feels like maybe a little bit of a harder effort.
Agreed.
Just more time and,
Yeah,
and
budget
energy,
and to film all those, but
but feels like it would probably make a lot of impact. So I'm going to stick that one in our high and hard. Activities to do together that doesn't center on caregiving. To me, that actually feels like
low effort.
a
to
low
me.
effort,
Some brainstorming, but a huge
or
impact.
high impact. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we would go through this activity, map all of them out, which would then allow us to focus on what are our low hanging fruit, our jewels, and our high and hard to really prioritize the top 4 or 5 concepts to begin executing. So
You did it. You did the whole process, soup to nuts. You just did it and created incredible concepts. So again, our idea is this process is regardless of industry, it is focusing on the human at the end of it, right? And so if we can make sure we hold ourselves accountable to not just drive decisions by internal business metrics, by assumptions that have become entrenched beliefs about our members at a large level, and start to flip it on its head and understand them as humans, then again, within each of your organizations, you'll be able to do this exact same process and start to find ways to engage with them in new and exciting, innovative ways that differentiate you and make them be drawn to your organization and to the cause. So again, as Melissa said, this recording will be available. We'll also send this PDF, so you'll be able to track the process again. You'll have the framework in there. You'll see all of your brilliant ideas. And please know, Stacy, this is what we love to do. So we'll make sure that our emails are, you know, I think it is on our last little slide. So if you have questions, if you want to have conversations of how to bring this within your own organization, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We love this. We love making a positive impact, and we're so impressed with all that you guys do in the nonprofit sector. So any way we can help, we're here.
Thank you so much, Faith and Stacy. This is just such an amazing process, and really appreciate you sharing it with us today. I think that we often are tasked with fostering deeper engagement, but don't always know how to do it from a fresh perspective. So I think this was excellent for us to be able to go through this exercise and to be able to share these resources. Thank you all for joining us this morning for the Big Buzz Breakfast Club. I hope you have a fabulous day.
Thank you. Thank you.